I had waited 23 years for a phone call that never came. 23 years of sending birthday cards that disappeared into silence, Christmas packages that were never acknowledged, voicemails that piled up like unread prayers. "Happy birthday, Benjamin. It's Mom. I love you. Call me when you can." But the phone stayed quiet. Not once in all those years did my son pick up, text back, or send so much as a postcard. Nothing. Just the same crushing, deliberate nothing I had come to know as his answer. If my story resonates with you, if you've ever stared at a silent phone wondering what you did wrong, subscribe to the channel and stay with me. There are more stories like this one, and I don't want you to miss the next. This morning, I woke up in the same little condo I've rented since my husband passed 26 years ago. The air smelled faintly of yesterday's coffee and the lavender sachets I keep in the drawers to hide the mustiness of old carpet. The radiator clanked softly in the corner like it always does when the heat kicks on, a lonely metallic heartbeat that used to make me flinch because it sounded like someone knocking. Now it's just noise. The walls are still lined with photographs from the time when Benjamin and his sister Rebecca were small. Benjamin in his red soccer jersey, cheeks flushed, grinning with two missing front teeth, grass stains on his knees like badges of honor. Rebecca clutching the teddy bear I stayed up until dawn sewing for her 8th birthday, the stuffing poking out because my eyes were too tired to see straight, but she never noticed, just hugged it tighter. Christmas mornings with tinsel in their hair, Easter egg hunts in the patchy backyard. The summer we drove to the lake in that rattling old station wagon with no air conditioning, windows down, all of us singing off-key to the radio while the hot wind whipped our faces and made their hair dance like wild things. I made coffee the way I always do, 1 scoop for the pot, 1 for me, and the machine gurgled like it was clearing its throat, the scent filling the small kitchen until it felt almost like company. I sat by the window that overlooks the cracked parking lot, steam curling against the cold glass, fogging the view of the same gray sedans that have been there for years. Today was Saturday. Rebecca's 50th birthday party was tonight. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks ago. Heavy cream cardstock, gold script, black tie optional, 7 p.m. at the country club. No handwritten note, no, "We miss you, Mom," just a formal card and an RSVP email address that belonged to an event planner who probably never met Rebecca's mother. I stared at that invitation every morning while the coffee cooled. I ran my thumb over the lazed lettering until the gold started to wear off and the edges grew soft. Part of me wanted to tear it up, to watch the pieces flutter into the trash like dead leaves. Another part, smaller, more stubborn, the part that still woke up some nights reaching for the phone that never rang, whispered, maybe this time. Maybe 50 years was a milestone big enough to matter. Maybe a daughter turning the same age I was when I buried her father would finally see me. I bought the dress anyway, midnight blue silk that caught the light like deep water running over stones. $380 from a consignment boutique downtown, the most expensive thing I'd bought in a decade. When I slipped it over my head in the cramped dressing room, the fabric cool against my skin, I caught my reflection and stopped breathing for a second. My eyes looked alive again, the way they used to when I laughed with their father in the kitchen while the kids slept. I felt something flutter in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe, or just the old habit of trying to be enough. I bought the gift, too, a pearl and sapphire bracelet from the jeweler on Maple Street. $1,200 on the credit card I swore I would never max out again. The saleswoman wrapped it in navy paper and tied it with silver ribbons so perfectly it hurt to watch. I stood there, hands trembling slightly, telling myself this was the last time I would spend money I didn't have trying to buy a place in their lives. My reflection in the store window looked small and determined and terribly breakable, like a porcelain doll someone had forgotten to put back on the shelf. I took the train into the city because I sold my car years ago when the transmission died and the repair bill was more than the car was worth. The train rocked gently, windows fogged with breath, the smell of wet coats and burnt coffee thick in the air. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass, watching suburbs blur past, streetlights flickering on as dusk settled. I rehearsed what I would say. Simple things. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. You look beautiful. I'm so proud of you." Words a mother shouldn't have to practice, but my tongue felt thick with 23 years of unsaid sentences, each one a stone in my mouth. The country club sat on a hill overlooking the river, white columns glowing under floodlights like teeth in the dark, manicured hedges clipped into perfect spears that looked cold even from a distance. The air smelled of cut boxwood and expensive perfume, and something metallic from the water far below. A valet in a crimson jacket took my ticket and tried not to stare at the slightly shiny elbows of my old wool coat. Inside, the foyer was all marble and crystal chandeliers that threw fractured light across the floor like spilled diamonds. The scent of lilies was so strong it made my throat tight, like grief had been bottled and sprayed into the air. A woman in a severe black dress checked my name off a tablet. "Mrs. Helen Whitcomb? The garden terrace is straight through those doors." She offered the kind of smile people give to someone they assume is lost, the same smile I'd seen on nurses' faces in hospital corridors long ago. I stepped outside and the night air hit me. Cool, crisp, carrying the faint metallic scent of the river and something greener, like crushed leaves. The terrace had been transformed. Long tables draped in ivory linen that shimmered under fairy lights strung through the trees like captured stars. Centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus so tall they swayed in the breeze, releasing sharp, medicinal notes. Crystal caught the light like ice. A string quartet played something soft and expensive that floated over the murmur of 100 voices, violin notes trembling in the air like they were afraid to land. Women in sequins that flashed when they moved, men in tuxedos that cost more than my yearly rent. I felt the silk of my dress brush my legs and suddenly wished I'd worn something plainer, something that didn't try so hard to be seen. I spotted Rebecca immediately. She was radiant in emerald silk that hugged her like water, diamonds flashing at her throat each time she laughed. She was surrounded by women whose laughter sounded like champagne bubbles, bright and weightless. When she saw me, her smile faltered, just a flicker, gone so fast I might have imagined it, then snapped back into place, bright and practiced and utterly foreign. "Mom," she said, gliding over, air kissing somewhere near my cheek without actually touching. The scent of her perfume, something French and expensive, all sharp citrus and white flowers, made my eyes water and my stomach clench with memory. "You made it." The women around her turned with polite curiosity, pearls gleaming like tiny moons. "Everyone, this is my mother, Helen." The introduction landed like an apology, soft and final. Rebecca was swept away by another guest before I could hand her the gift box trembling in my hands, the way my heart was trembling inside my ribs. I found Benjamin near the bar, taller than memory, hair silvering at the temples, surrounded by men in navy suits who laughed too loudly at whatever clever thing he'd said. Our eyes met across the crowd. For one heartbeat, I thought he might smile, might lift a hand, might— He lifted his glass a fraction, an acknowledgement maybe, then turned back to his circle as if I were a passing server carrying empty trays. I took a flute of champagne from a passing tray just to have something to hold, something to stop my hands from shaking. The bubbles stung my nose and tasted like pennies. I found a small table near the hedges, half hidden by a potted lemon tree whose leaves brushed my shoulder with every breeze, releasing sharp citrus that made my mouth water and my eyes sting worse. From there, I could watch without being in the way. That seemed to be my role tonight, decoration from a past life, something quaint to point at and then forget. The memories came anyway, sharp as the scent of citrus leaves when I brushed them. Rebecca at 6, fever burning 104, me carrying her through pouring rain to the car because the ambulance was 20 minutes out. Her small body shaking against my chest, hot as a coal, whispering, "Don't leave me, Mommy," her breath damp against my neck. Benjamin at 14, crawling into my bed the night his father died, sobbing into my neck until dawn while I rocked him and promised I would never ever leave, my own tears soaking his hair. I kept that promise. They didn't. I watched grandchildren I had never held chase each other between tables, shrieking with laughter that carried over the music like birds. Liam with Rebecca's dark curls bouncing as he ran. Ava with Benjamin's serious eyes narrowed in concentration as she tagged her cousin. Mason and Harper, the twins, red-cheeked and fearless, shrieking when they collided in a heap of expensive fabric. 4 grandchildren who thought their grandmother was either dead or imaginary. I knew their names only from the Christmas cards I still send every year, the ones that came back unopened or, worse, never acknowledged at all. Some years I told myself the cards got lost in the mail. Most years I knew better. Then the lights dimmed slightly, fairy lights twinkling brighter like someone had turned up the stars, and Rebecca's husband, Victor Langford, took the small stage. He was silver-haired, distinguished, voice smooth as the bourbon he swirled in his glass, ice clinking softly. He thanked everyone for coming, talked about how blessed he was to have Rebecca, how proud they were of the life they'd built together, the words rolling out polished and perfect. Benjamin joined them, smiling that lawyer smile that could sell snow to Eskimos, the one that used to melt my heart when he was 8 and wanted one more story. Victor raised his glass higher, diamonds on his cufflinks flashing, and tonight we have a very special announcement. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on stairs, the champagne sloshing dangerously in my glass. Benjamin stepped forward, voice carrying easily over the hush, that courtroom confidence that once made me so proud. As most of you know, the Langford-Ross family has been planning a legacy property, a compound in Aspen where our children and grandchildren can gather for generations, skiing in winter, hiking in summer, a true family anchor. Applause rippled, warm and generous, washing over me like water I couldn't feel. Rebecca took the mic, eyes scanning until they found me in the shadows, her smile widening in a way that made my skin crawl. "Mom," she said, voice honey-sweet over the speakers, "would you come up here, please?" Every head turned. I felt the weight of 100 stairs, like physical touch, like hands pressing me forward. My legs carried me on autopilot, silk whispering against my thighs, heels clicking too loud on the stone like gunshots in the sudden quiet. When I reached the stage, Rebecca looped an arm around my shoulders, light, careful, like I was made of spun glass that might cut her if she held too tight. Victor smiled wide for the crowd, teeth perfect. "We want this to be a true family investment. Everyone contributing feels ownership." He paused the way televangelists do before the ask, letting the silence stretch just long enough to feel holy. "Mom, we know you received the insurance settlement after Dad died, and that you've been so careful with it all these years. We were hoping you could gift the remainder, around $420,000, to the Aspen Fund. That way, you'll always have a home with us there, a place with the grandkids. You'd be part of the legacy." Soft ahs floated up from the crowd like doves released at a wedding. They thought this was touching. They thought this was love. Benjamin produced a leather folder already thick with documents, smiling like he'd just won a case. "I took the liberty of having everything drawn up. We just need your signature and the wiring instructions." $420,000, exactly what remained after hospital bills, funeral costs, and keeping a roof over two teenagers' heads on a secretary's wage while I learned to sleep alone. They knew the number because Benjamin had run a quiet asset search. He admitted it later, casually, like checking the weather. Rebecca squeezed my shoulder, nails perfectly manicured, digging in just enough to feel possessive. "It's what Dad would have wanted, Mom, for all of us to be together." I looked at my daughter, 50 years old, flawless skin, flawless life, and felt something inside me go perfectly, terribly still. The string quartet had stopped. Even the river seemed to hold its breath. The only sound was my pulse in my ears, slow and heavy, like a drum announcing an execution. I had imagined this moment for decades, but never like this, not with a microphone and an audience and a pre-printed contract and strangers cooing like this was the sweetest thing they'd ever seen. The silence stretched until it hurt, until I could feel every pair of eyes boring into my skin. Victor cleared his throat softly, the sound unnaturally loud. "Helen, we can step inside if you'd like to talk privately." "No need," I said. My voice carried farther than I expected, steady, almost curious, like I was watching myself from very far away. "I understand perfectly." Rebecca's grip tightened, a warning I could feel in my bones. "Mom, don't make a scene." A scene? 23 years of silence, and I was the one who might make a scene. I stepped out of her arm. The night air felt suddenly colder against my skin, raising gooseflesh along my arms. "I'm not signing anything tonight, or any night." Benjamin's smile slipped just a fraction, but I saw it. "Mom, this is a limited liability partnership. The closing is in 10 days. You need my money," I finished for him, softly, almost gently. "You don't need me. You made that clear a long time ago." Victor tried the kind father-in-law voice, rich with practiced warmth that didn't reach his eyes. "Helen, no one is saying." I looked at the crowd, people who had never sent me a Christmas card, who didn't know I existed until tonight, and felt the last thread snap with a sound only I could hear, like ice breaking on a winter pond. I turned to Rebecca. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. The gift is on the table by the door." My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't shake. Inside, I was shaking so hard I thought I might come apart, but outside I was marble. Then I walked off the stage. Benjamin followed me across the terrace, catching my elbow in the shadows near the hedge where the fairy lights didn't quite reach. His grip was tighter than necessary, fingers pressing into the soft flesh above my elbow like he could force me back into the shape he wanted. "You're seriously going to embarrass us in front of everyone?" His voice was low, furious, the same tone he used at 12 when I wouldn't buy him the expensive sneakers. I looked up at him, at the man my little boy had become, tall and broad and furious, and felt the years collapse into this single moment. "You're embarrassing me?" My laugh came out dry, cracked like old paint, tasting of champagne and unshed tears. 23 years, Benjamin. Not one call. Not one. And the moment you need $420,000, suddenly I'm family again? His jaw worked, a muscle jumping beneath the perfect shave. "We've been busy building lives. You act like we owe you every weekend." "You owe me a phone call on my birthday," I said, voice low but steady, each word placed carefully like stones in a wall. "You owe me meeting my grandchildren. You owe me basic human decency." He leaned closer, voice dropping to that courtroom whisper he uses on witnesses, the one that makes juries lean forward. "If you walk away tonight, don't expect an invitation to Aspen. Don't expect Christmas. Don't expect anything." The words should have hurt. They should have cut me open. Instead, they felt like permission, like the last lock clicking open. "I stopped expecting anything a long time ago," I said. The truth of it settled over me like a warm blanket on a freezing night. Tonight, I'm just making it official." I pulled my arm free and kept walking. The gravel crunched under my heels. No one else tried to stop me. Not one voice called my name. Outside, the night air was cold enough to burn my lungs. I stood under the portico, breathing it in like medicine, watching my breath cloud in the floodlights. My hands shook as I opened my phone and did the thing I had rehearsed in my head for weeks, but never believed I would have the courage to do. I blocked Rebecca's number. The little red circle appeared, then gone. I blocked Benjamin's. Gone. I blocked Victor's. Gone. I blocked every Langford Ross I had in my contacts, one by one, until the list was clean. The finality of it felt like stepping off a cliff and discovering I could fly. The rideshare pulled up, headlights cutting through the dark. As we drove down the winding club driveway, I watched the lights of the party shrink in the rear window until they disappeared, like stars going out one by one, until there was only the long, dark road and the smell of the river fading behind me. That was 6 months ago. The morning after the party, I woke before dawn with the taste of champagne still bitter on my tongue and the echo of Rebecca's perfume in my nose. I sat at my little kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and wrote the list I had imagined 1,000 nights but never dared to put on paper, the pen scratching loud in the quiet. 1. Change my name. 2. Sell everything. 3. Disappear so completely they will never find me again. I started the very next Monday. First, I hired an attorney in a different state, Caroline Pierce, sharp, discreet, and expensive. She listened without blinking while I told her everything, tears finally coming now that I was safe to let them fall, hot and sudden and shocking after so many dry years. "We can make you vanish," she said simply, pushing a box of tissues across the desk. "It'll cost, but we can do it clean." By August, my name was legally Claire Donovan. The judge signed the order on a Thursday. The notice ran in an obscure legal journal no one reads. No objections were filed. I stood in the courthouse hallway afterward, heart hammering, and whispered the new name aloud. Claire. It tasted like salt wind and second chances and something dangerously close to joy. I sold the condo in September for $285,000, quick, all cash, to a young couple from California who wanted to be near their first grandbaby. I paid off the $1,200 bracelet debt and the dress I never wore again, folding the midnight silk one last time before dropping it in the donation bin, the fabric still smelling faintly of lilies from the country club. I stood in the empty living room the day the movers left and ran my hand over the walls where the photographs used to hang. The faint rectangles of unfaded paint looked like ghosts saying goodbye, or maybe waving hello to whoever came next. I canceled the phone number I'd had since 1999. The voicemail greeting, still my voice, saying, "You've reached Helen Whitcomb," simply ceased to exist one Tuesday morning. I watched the service confirmation email and felt a weight lift I didn't know I was carrying, like I'd been wearing an invisible coat made of lead for decades. I closed every account that had my old name, Facebook, the grocery store loyalty card, the library card, gone. I paid cash for a prepaid phone that felt foreign and light in my hand. I rented a P.O. box in a town 3 hours away under the new name, the metal key cold and real against my palm. In October, I found the little white clapboard house on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. 2 bedrooms, wraparound porch, the constant hush of waves through the screen door like the house itself was breathing. $340,000. I paid cash. The realtor, a cheerful woman named June with sun-bleached hair, thought I was a rich widow escaping noisy grandchildren. I let her think it. It was easier than the truth, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to explain. I hired movers who didn't ask questions. They packed my life into 17 boxes that smelled of cardboard and dust and old lavender. The photographs of Benjamin and Rebecca as children went into the last box. I taped it shut myself and wrote in thick black marker, "Do not open." It's in the attic now, under insulation and forgotten Christmas decorations, waiting like a seed that might never sprout. I haven't decided whether it will ever come down. Some days I think I'll burn it. Some days I think I'll open it and finally let myself grieve properly. Most days, I just live. The week I moved, Rebecca tried calling from a new number. I watched the screen light up with "unknown" and felt my heart stutter, 1-2 beats, then let it ring until voicemail caught it. Then came the texts, each one a small knife. "Mom, we need to talk. I'm sorry about how things went. Can we try again?" I read them once, felt my chest cave in for 3 heartbeats, then deleted the thread before the tears could start again. A week later, Benjamin's office called my old condo number, disconnected. They tried the landline that no longer existed. Then silence, then silence, then silence. 3 months after I disappeared, a letter arrived at my P.O. box, forwarded by Caroline. Thick cream envelope, familiar looping handwriting that used to sign school permission slips and Valentine's cards. My fingers shook so hard I almost dropped it. "Mom, I know you changed your name. I know you moved. A private investigator found the court order. It cost $18,000, but we needed to know you were safe. I've been in therapy twice a week. I finally understand what I did. I was ashamed, so I pretended you didn't exist instead of facing how badly I failed you. I taught my children that your grandmother lived far away and liked it quiet. That was a coward. The Aspen deal fell through. We lost the deposit. I don't care about the money anymore. I care that I lost you. The kids asked about you now. I started telling them the truth, that I kept you away and that was wrong. Liam, he's 10, drew you a picture of the ocean. He wants to know if you like crabs. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I see it now. All of it. I'm sorry. Love always, Rebecca." Inside was the drawing. Stick figure lady with white hair standing by blue scribbles, holding a red crab. In the corner, Liam had written in careful block letters, "To Grandma Claire." I sat on the porch steps with the letter in my lap and cried until the paper curled from my tears and the ink bled just a little. The ocean roared in the distance like it understood. Then I walked inside, climbed the pull-down attic stairs with the letter clutched in my fist, put the drawing in the same taped box, and closed the lid gently, like closing a coffin, like burying something that needed to stay buried. Some doors, once closed, stay closed, and that's okay. 8 months after the party, Benjamin tried a different tactic. A process server showed up at my little white house with papers claiming financial abandonment of adult children and demanding I contribute to family legacy assets. I stood on the porch in bare feet, salt wind whipping my hair, while gulls wheeled overhead screaming like they were laughing at the joke. I called Caroline from the porch while the man waited awkwardly by his car. She handled it in one phone call, voice calm and lethal. The case was laughed out of court before it ever reached a judge. A year to the day after Rebecca's 50th birthday, I walked the beach at sunrise. The sand was cold and firm under my bare feet, wet from the retreating tide, the sky the exact color of the dress I never wore again. Gulls cried overhead like they were singing me happy birthday. I carried the small cedar box I had built in the shed behind the house, sanded smooth with my own hands until the wood felt like silk. Inside were the few things I couldn't leave in the attic. The first soccer medal Benjamin ever won, tarnished now, ribbon frayed. Rebecca's tiny hospital bracelet, yellowed with age, the plastic cracked but the name still legible. The pearl necklace my mother fastened around my neck the day I married their father, the clasp still perfect, the pearls still warm when I held them to my cheek. I dug a hole above the tide line with my hands until my nails were full of wet sand and my fingers ached with cold. I placed the box inside, covered it, pressed seashells into the mound like a marker no one would ever read. Then I walked into the surf up to my knees and let the water take the last of the weight. The cold shocked my skin, but I stayed until I couldn't feel my feet, until I felt clean, until the ocean had washed 26 years of waiting off my bones. I am 73 now, my hair is snow white, and I wear it in a long braid down my back that swings when I walk, heavy and real. I teach watercolor classes at the community center on Tuesdays, mostly widows and divorcees learning to paint lighthouses and sunsets, their brushes trembling at first, then growing bold. I volunteer at the Sea Turtle Hospital on Thursdays, gently turning hatchlings toward the moonlit waves and whispering, "Go, little ones, go," the same words I once whispered to my own children when they left for college and never really came back. I have friends now who call on my birthday and bring homemade key lime pie still warm from the oven, who sit on my porch drinking sweet tea and talking about books and arthritis and the best place to watch the dolphins at dusk. They know my story because I finally told it, and they held my hand while I cried and then laughed with me when I said I'd never been happier. Sometimes tourists ask if I have family. I smile and say, "I have the ocean. That's enough." And I mean it. The tide comes in and out every day without fail, without needing anything from me, and somehow that feels like love. Tonight, I'm sitting on my porch swing watching the stars come out over the water one by one, like someone turning on tiny lights across the universe just for me. The air smells like salt and honeysuckle and wood smoke from someone's distant fire. There's a glass of wine in my hand, good wine, the kind I buy without checking the price tag twice, and peace in my chest I never thought I'd earn. Peace that feels earned, hard-won, mine. I am Claire Donovan. I am no one's mother anymore, and I have never been happier. If you've ever had to walk away to save yourself, leave a heart in the comments. Tell me I'm not alone. And if this story moved you, subscribe, because there are more of us out here finding our way back to the light, and I want to walk with you. The tide is coming in. I think I'll stay a while.